United States did not lose the Vietnam War on the battlefield. It lost it in the minds of millions of Vietnamese villagers, and the trap was set years before American combat troops ever arrived. Welcome to History Decoded. I'm Prof. Marcus.
And I'm Ellie. Professor Marcus, what are we uncovering today?
We're uncovering how the most powerful military on Earth spent more than a decade fighting a poor rice farming country and still couldn't win, not because it lacked bombs or soldiers, but because it never controlled the one thing that mattered: the story ordinary Vietnamese people believed about their own future.
That's a big claim. Most of us were taught Vietnam was a straightforward Cold War conflict. Communist North invaded South America, went to stop communism, and then it got messy.
That version is one of the most persistent myths in modern history. The real record is stranger and more tragic. The United States didn't stumble into Vietnam by accident. It was pulled in step by a series of decisions that each seemed reasonable at the time, and each dug the hole deeper.
So let's start at the beginning. Before America was America's war, this was someone else's war, right?
Exactly. Before it was the Vietnam War, it was the French War. Vietnam had been a French colony in Indochina since the late 19th century. French imperial rule meant rubber plantations, rice exports, and taxes that left many Vietnamese peasants landless or in debt. During World War II, Japan occupied the country, but the French colonial administration remained in place for much of the occupation. By 1945, Vietnamese nationalists had had enough.
And that's where Ho Chi Minh enters.
Yes. At the end of World War II, a nationalist leader named Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnamese independence. But here's the part history class never told you. His Declaration of Independence opened by quoting the American Declaration of Independence: "All men are created equal." He had worked with American intelligence officers against the Japanese during the war. He wrote multiple letters to President Truman pleading for American support for Vietnamese independence.
Wait, he asked the United States to support him?
He did, but Washington never answered. The State Department filed the letters away, and Truman's administration chose to support France, because France was a key ally in the new Cold War against the Soviet Union. American officials decided that backing a colonial power was safer than backing a leftist independence movement.
So the United States could have been on Ho Chi Minh's side in 1945, and instead it backed the French, trying to crush him.
That's the first great turning point that trapped Washington. It tied America to the losing side of Vietnamese history, the colonial side. And once you're committed to that, political legitimacy starts slipping away before a single American infantry unit is involved.
Let's talk about how France actually lost. I know the big name, Dien Bien Phu.
Dien Bien Phu is one of the great military surprises of the 20th century. In late 1953, the French command dropped roughly 15,000 troops into a remote valley in northern Vietnam. Their plan was to lure Ho Chi Minh's Viet Minh forces into a conventional battle, crush them with superior artillery and air power, and break the back of the insurgency.
That sounds reasonable on paper.
On paper it did, but General Vo Nguyen Giap did something the French thought was impossible. His men dragged heavy artillery pieces up jungle-covered mountains, piece by piece, sometimes by hand and rope, and placed them in caves overlooking the valley. By the time the battle opened in March 1954, the French were staring up at anti-aircraft guns and howitzers that had no right to be there.
So the French trap got turned against them.
Exactly. The valley became a bowl of fire. French airstrips were shelled, resupply planes couldn't land safely, and the monsoon turned the garrison into mud. After 56 days, on May 7, 1954, the French commanders surrendered. Thousands of French soldiers were taken prisoner, and many died on brutal forced marches before any peace agreement.
That must have been the moment France wanted out.
It was. At the Geneva Conference that year, the great powers divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel. Communist-led forces would consolidate in the north, and an anti-communist government under no Dien Diem, would take charge in the South. But the crucial detail is that the division was supposed to be temporary. Free nationwide elections were scheduled for 1956 to reunify the country.
Let me guess, those elections never happened.
They never happened. Diem, with quiet American backing, refused to hold them. Why? Because Washington and Saigon both knew Ho Chi Minh would probably win. President Eisenhower later admitted that if the elections had taken place, something like 80% of the population would have voted for Ho Chi Minh.
Wait, 80%? America canceled a free election because the wrong side might win?
That's exactly what the historical record shows. It's one of the most uncomfortable truths of the whole war. The United States, which said it was fighting for freedom and self-determination, helped block the one nationwide vote that could have settled Vietnam's future peacefully.
This completely changes how I think about the start of the war. It wasn't really about democracy for the Vietnamese.
It was about Cold War fear. Washington saw the world through the lens of the domino theory, the idea that if Vietnam fell to communism, its neighbors would fall one after another. That fear overrode any concern about whether the South Vietnamese government actually represented its own people.
So America inherited a weak, unpopular ally from a failed colonial power.
And then spent the next decade trying to keep that ally alive with increasingly massive force.
Walk me through how the U.S. went from advisors to full war.
At first, the American involvement was limited. Under Eisenhower and Kennedy, the U.S. sent money, weapons, and military advisors, around 16,000 by 1963. But the South Vietnamese government was deeply unstable. Diem was a Catholic in a mostly Buddhist country, and he ruled with repression. In 1963, Buddhist monks began protesting his regime. The images that shocked the world showed a monk, Thich Quang Duc, burning himself to death on a Saigon street.
That must have made the U.S. relationship with Diem impossible.
It did. Kennedy's administration quietly encouraged South Vietnamese generals to stage a coup. In November 1963, Diem was captured and assassinated. 3 weeks later, President Kennedy himself was killed in Dallas. The war entered a new, more chaotic phase.
And then came Lyndon Johnson.
Yes. Lyndon Johnson was a domestic policy genius, but Vietnam became the shadow over everything he hoped to build. In August 1964, a murky event in the Gulf of Tonkin gave him the opening to escalate.
The Gulf of Tonkin incident. I remember that name. There were 2 attacks on American ships.
That's the story the public heard, but the truth is more troubling. On August 2, the destroyer USS Maddox was involved in a firefight with North Vietnamese torpedo boats. 2 days later, the Maddox and another destroyer reported a second attack. The second attack almost certainly never happened. Signals intelligence was misread, sonar operators were spooked by bad weather, and later investigations concluded there was no second torpedo assault.
Wait, so Congress passed a blank check based on an attack that didn't happen?
In August 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution passed almost unanimously. It authorized the president to take all necessary measures to repel any armed attack and prevent further aggression. It was not a declaration of war, but it functioned as one. Johnson now had congressional cover for a massive expansion.
That's terrifying. One questionable night and thousands of lives changed.
In early 1965, after Viet Cong attacks on American bases, Johnson ordered Operation Rolling Thunder, a sustained bombing campaign against North Vietnam. Then in March 1965, the first American combat troops landed at Da Nang. By the end of 1965, there were roughly 18,400 U.S. troops in Vietnam. By 1968, more than 500,000.
And the assumption was that enough bombs and enough men would force the North to give up.
That was the theory. U.S. planners believed in gradual escalation. Bombing would raise the cost for Hanoi until it accepted a negotiated settlement. But the enemy never saw the war the way American strategists did.
Now, most people assume Vietnam was a clear case of North Vietnam invading South Vietnam. Is that actually true?
Here's the part history class never told you. The insurgency in the South began as a homegrown movement. The National Liberation Front, known to Americans as the Viet Cong, made up of Southern communist, nationalist, peasants, and former resistance fighters. Hanoi supported it, but the war was fundamentally a civil conflict over who had the right to rule the South.
So it wasn't just an invasion from another country, it was a revolution inside the country.
Exactly. And that's the counterintuitive core of why America couldn't win. The United States was not fighting a foreign army that it could push across a border. It was fighting an idea, the idea that Vietnamese people should rule themselves without foreign domination. That idea had been building for decades against the French, and then against whoever replaced them.
But America had overwhelming firepower. I think most people wonder why that wasn't enough.
Because in a guerrilla war, the center of gravity is not territory. It is the support of the population. Most of Vietnam's fighting happened in villages, not on open battlefields. The Viet Cong lived among civilians, struck at night, and disappeared into elaborate tunnel systems. American soldiers often couldn't tell who was a farmer and who was a fighter. Every airstrike that killed civilians or destroyed a village often created more insurgents than it eliminated.
So the weapons that were supposed to win were helping the enemy recruit.
Exactly. An American strategy made it worse. The military measured progress with body counts and kill ratios. That pushed officers to produce numbers, which pushed ordinary patrols to treat every dead Vietnamese person as a possible enemy. It was a war without front lines, so success became an abstraction, and the abstraction hid deep failure.
Hold on, so the body count metric actually undermined the whole effort?
It did, because you can kill insurgents indefinitely and still lose if the survivors' brothers, sons, and neighbors now hate the government in Saigon and the foreigners who killed their family. That's the brutal arithmetic of insurgency.
So America didn't lose because the North Vietnamese army was stronger. It lost because the U.S. was fighting for a government that many South Vietnamese didn't believe in.
That's the deepest layer of the tragedy. The United States could win almost every major conventional engagement, and it often did, but every military victory was politically hollow because the Saigon regime never achieved the deep loyalty of its own population.
That seems like an unwinnable position from the start.
It was. And the biggest single moment that revealed this to the American public was the Tet Offensive in early 1968.
Tell me about Tet, because I know it as a turning point.
On January 30, 1968, during the Vietnamese New Year festival, known as Tet, North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces launched coordinated attacks on more than 100 cities, towns, and military bases across South Vietnam, including the American embassy in Saigon.
So the enemy hit everywhere at once.
Yes, and here's the paradox that most people don't understand. Militarily, the Tet Offensive was a disaster for the communists. American and South Vietnamese forces regrouped and crushed the attacks within weeks. The Viet Cong lost tens of thousands of fighters, and the uprising they hoped to spark among city dwellers never materialized.
So the U.S. won the battle?
On the battlefield, yes. But the war was never only on the battlefield. Tet shattered the psychological foundation of the American effort. For years, General William Westmoreland and other officials had told the American people there was light at the end of the tunnel, that the enemy was nearly broken. Then suddenly the enemy was striking the U.S. Embassy in the capital. The gap between official optimism and visible reality became impossible to ignore.
That's the moment the story changed at home.
It did. Walter Cronkite, the most trusted newsman in America, visited Vietnam after Tet and told the country that the war was mired in stalemate. President Johnson reportedly said, "If I've lost Cronkite, I've lost Middle America." Within weeks, Johnson announced he would not run for re-election and halted some bombing.
So a military defeat for the Viet Cong became a strategic victory because it broke Washington's will.
Exactly. That's one of the most misunderstood turning points of the 20th century. The Viet Cong lost the battle, but they won the information war. And in a conflict fought over legitimacy, perception was the real terrain.
What about My Lai? That's the massacre that still haunts the war.
In March 1968, a U.S. Army company entered a hamlet called My Lai on a search and destroy mission. They found no enemy fighters, mostly old men, women, and children. Over several hours, American soldiers murdered hundreds of unarmed civilians. The massacre was covered up for over a year. When the story broke in 1969, it further corroded the moral case for the war, both in America and around the world.
So the exact things the United States said it was against, brutality, atrocity, indifference to civilians, were now on the front pages.
Yes, and it fed the deeper truth. When you fight a war for an ally without popular legitimacy, your own soldiers can end up in impossible moral situations where ordinary villagers look like the enemy. My lie wasn't an isolated glitch. It was one horrifying symptom of a strategy that treated the population as the battlefield.
Did Nixon have any way out?
Nixon came to office in 1969, promising peace with honor. He began withdrawing American troops and building up the South Vietnamese army, a policy called Vietnamization. But he also expanded the war into Cambodia and Laos to cut the Ho Chi Minh Trail. In 1970, the invasion of Cambodia set off massive protests in the United States, including the shooting of 4 students at Kent State University. The war now felt unbearable at home.
And yet it dragged on for years.
It did. The Paris Peace Accords in 1973 officially ended American combat involvement, and U.S. forces came home, but North Vietnamese troops stayed in the South. In 1975, after Congress refused further military aid, Hanoi launched a final conventional offensive. On April 30, 1975, North Vietnamese tanks smashed through the gates of the presidential palace in Saigon. American helicopters evacuated the last personnel from the embassy roof, and South Vietnam collapsed.
So after all those years and all those deaths, the outcome, the U.S. had spent billions to prevent, happened anyway.
Exactly. The North took the South, and Vietnam was reunified under a communist government. But here's the deeper point. The war didn't end because America suddenly became weak. It ended because the political foundation in the South had never been strong enough to stand on its own.
This is a lot to sit with. If our listeners are like me, they're probably rethinking everything they thought they knew about the Vietnam War.
And if this episode is making you see the war differently, that's exactly what History Decoded is for. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's deep dive into the decisions that shaped our world.
Yes, and tell us in the comments what surprised you most. We genuinely read those.
Because the Vietnam story isn't just about one country. It's about a trap that still opens under great powers today.
Let's talk about that. How does Vietnam still shape the world we live in?
It changed American politics and foreign policy profoundly. It created a deep distrust of government among a generation of Americans. It led to the War Powers Act, which tried to limit a president's ability to fight undeclared wars. It also gave rise to the term Vietnam Syndrome, the deep reluctance to send American troops into long-ground wars.
And we've seen versions of that debate in almost every intervention since.
Yes. The central question of Vietnam, can military power create political legitimacy, remains the most important question in every conflict where a foreign power steps into another country's civil struggle. Iraq and Afghanistan raise the same ghosts. The names change, but the trap remains.
So, what's the one line our listeners should carry away?
The United States didn't lose Vietnam because it lacked power. It lost because no amount of power could make a foreign-backed government legitimate in the eyes of its own people. That's a lesson nations keep relearning the hard way.
That's a chilling takeaway.
It is. History doesn't repeat exactly, but the questions never really go away.
Thanks, Professor Marcus. And thank you for listening to History Decoded. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stay curious.